It was very intense, and it reminded me of pre-labor pains.
Mary McDonald says she is sure she became sick from E. coli in the water because she's eliminated all other sources. Multnomah County Health Department tells me 76 people reported E. coli symptoms directly to them.
Do you feel like the information about you getting sick is going to get passed on to those at Multnomah County that need to know?
I did not get that sense.
The county tells me no doctors reported to them they had done any testing or gotten positive results for E. coli. McDonald says she called her doctor several times
and said, there's blood in my stool, I'm still having these stomach cramps, I'm concerned. Shouldn't we find out what this is? Well, the advice nurse had called me and again just said, monitor the symptoms, it should pass.
The boil water notice has been lifted. Flush taps.
The state allowed the city to lift the boil water alert after 24 hours. When the next samples came back clear and further testing showed the E. coli strain was not associated with deadly outbreaks. Still, the state tells me that does not mean it wasn't dangerous.
So E. coli it basically means that there's fecal matter in the water. There's poop in the water. So an E. coli positive test is pretty clear indication that there's a health risk.
I've uncovered the Portland Water Bureau did more testing of the E. coli samples at a private laboratory. I checked and they did not tell the state the sample was also positive for another bacteria. It's called Enterobacter aeruginosus, and I found it can also pose health risks. This is the very same bacteria I previously discovered showed up several times last fall near Southwest 27th and Nevada Court, at the Washington Park Reservoir, and at Southeast 50th and Roan. The bacteria was present in 11% of the samples taken. At 5%, the public warning process is to be triggered.
Clearly, you folks knew about this and the potential health risks and failed to notify the public.
There aren't potential health risks.
But in this thick stack of Water Bureau documents I obtained through a public information request, I found this email showing staff did know it could cause bacterial infection. And at that time, the state made the Water Bureau send this letter notifying more than 17,000 water customers that people with severely compromised immune systems, infants, and some elderly may be at increased risk and should seek advice from their healthcare provider. But that didn't go into mailboxes until 2 months later. I got the code from the state to check Portland water tests. I went through all the samples taken, and I discovered there was actually a positive fecal coliform, or E. coli, sample not long before the election to disband the Portland Water Bureau and create a water district. Information some say they wanted to know about before they voted.
For my trust to be displaced in something that I assumed was being handled appropriately is makes me very angry.
I tried to ask Commissioner Nick Fish, who oversees the Water Bureau, about it after a city council meeting.
Every time I try to get an interview with you, I never get an interview.
But he immediately defers to Administrator David Schaff. Then Commissioner Fish attempts to grab my mic when I ask a follow-up question when the answer conflicts with my research.
So in March, Portland had a positive test for fecal coliform. Was there a reason the public wasn't notified about that?
David.
Yes, that's one of the things that happens on a fairly not regular basis, about half a dozen times a year. We had a positive sample come back, I believe it was on Tuesday, April 1st, and the recent...
When was the last time you had one before that? Because I couldn't find one until 2012.
Carla, you interrupted him. Let him answer the question.
I was saying it came back positive on April 1st, 2014, and the resamples came back negative the next day.
I kept asking the clarifying question because Schaff says positive fecal coliforms, or E. coli samples, pop up about 6 times a year. But I thoroughly checked, and see all these zeros? They aren't reported on the state's website. When I ask for a specific example, Schaff contradicts his statement from just seconds earlier, admitting the last time an E. coli test was positive was 2 years ago.
Can you tell me the time before that you had one?
If you recall.
2000, it would be sometime in 2012, I believe.
I found other bacteria do show up more often throughout the water system. This while the city of Portland's own audit reports say the Water Bureau falls short on industry standards and the water mains are flushed and replaced infrequently. Meanwhile, Mary McDonald, who believes she became sick from the E. coli, is further upset because the city didn't notify the public until the state forced them to, and after the election.
My trust has been misplaced. To know that information was available and then it wasn't passed on to me until 3 days later, and that this could have been prevented.
So the city still doesn't know the source of the E. coli. They did find 2 dead birds in one of the reservoirs, but they've told me that that doesn't account for the other E. coli positive results that they have gotten.
So the question comes up, are they doing enough to find out? They just say, well, we may never know. So are they doing enough to find out?
Well, we're definitely going to be addressing that tomorrow night at 6.
All right. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Carla. And of course, we will continue to dig deeper tomorrow night. As Carla just mentioned, you will see what happened when Carla showed up to a presentation on the Boil Water event. Plus, she talks with the EPA and water experts from around the country about what they say needs to be done. So watch for part 2 of this in-depth investigation tomorrow night at 6.
And we're always looking for stories to investigate. So if you have something you want us to look into, email us at report@coin.com.